let's get it started. No, I think your mic's right there.
Oh.
Yeah. Mic check.
1, 2,
Mic
1,
check.
2.
All right, here we go. All right. Art on Bitcoin. One of the things that I really like about this title is that we can take it absolutely anywhere, right? And I really like that because I've got 3 superstars on stage right now that have all delved just a tiny bit in different ways and formats of art. So I'd love to start off by having you introduce yourself. Quick intro, who are you? What's the one thing, that we should take away from you? Leo, we'll start with you.
Hi everyone, very happy to be with you today. Thank you very much for being here. I'm Leo Caillard, I'm a marble sculptor. I do marble sculpting for 15 years. You can see some of my art pieces downstairs. And I have been doing digital art since 2012 and minting NFTs since 2020. I want to open a dialogue in between the physical art and the digital art and to find the best way to do long-term inscription. When you do marble carving, it's a long-term physical inscription. When you do Bitcoin ordinals, and especially large size file art on Bitcoin, you also do long-term inscription in terms of digital file. And that's what I want to do, to make a dialogue in between the physical and the digital long-term inscription.
Violetta.
Hey guys, my name is Violetta. I'm a musician, music artist. I've been doing this for a really long time, about 10 years. And a couple years ago, I decided to leave the traditional ways of making music, releasing music, and I just put my music on the blockchain, Ethereum, Bitcoin. So basically, I hit Spotify, I hit the music industry, and that's what you should know about me.
And Gordon.
Hello. Hi, everybody. My name is Gordon Berger, and for a very long time, I've been living a double life. One is being involved in blockchain since very early on. Basically, I started running a mining operation in 2012. Because my best friend was a programmer, and we kind of together started exploring how can we use Bitcoin. And then my other life was always being an artist, and kind of just through the years, I've been like always focusing on how can I merge those two worlds, blockchain and art. And how can we really mark this moment in history by creating artworks on the blockchain and kind of dealing through these very impactful concepts through art. Because I think art is one of the most powerful communicators ever. And today I'll be probably like touching upon kind of this concept of Runescriptions and using runes as an artistic medium.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I want to touch on. Each one of you has a long history of creating art in your own format, in the Web 2 traditional world, right? And then of transferring it or moving it into blockchain. Violetta, I just finished reading a really nice thread that you created in which you talked about that entire journey. And throughout the years, I've now been in the JPEG world, right, in the blockchain world for 3 years on the digital art side of it. And we've seen a lot of changes. More recently, we're talking now runes, and more recently, we're talking, a little bit past that, we're talking about ordinals, and here we are, right? I mean, who would have thought, really, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, that we would be here speaking specifically about ordinals? And there has been so much change throughout the years, and I'd really like to pull you back and see, from your opinion, what are those biggest hurdles that you experience going from the traditional art, or maybe the traditional, development side of it, of now going onto blockchain? And do you find resistance still within your world, within your realm? Leo, we can start with you.
It's a very interesting question. Actually, when you are an artist, you want to build value based on scarcity, on technicity. When I do marble carving, it's a difficulty by itself, because it's very hard to manage to do the marble carving and so on. And what I like about Bitcoin inscription, especially when you do 1-1 and large size inscription, it costs a lot, it's a mess, you have to work with miner, and as soon as you press the button, like the metadata, the file is totally on-chain. And I like this concept of there is no way back. You can't remove what you have inscribed. And it's very meaningful. It's like when you do the marble carving, there is no POM Z. You can't go back. You can't do anything else than just finish the piece. And you give it for the eternity. And I like this concept of on-chain art, fully on-chain art, because it's also a responsibility for the artist to make sure that what he inscribes is honest for himself and as an art piece, you know. It's quite impossible to do many large size inscription because it will be more and more costly and even like it might be maybe like even harder in a few years. So I don't think there will be more than few hundred large size inscription on chain, on Bitcoin especially. And I like this idea of being part of it, and that will represent something from the 2020s because it will be full very soon. The space is limited. The miner won't be able to inscribe larger file. And I like this idea of making something for scarcity.
It forces you to...
Like, it's an historical aspect. I like to play with time, long-term time inscription. Maybe in a few decades or a few centuries, they will look at the file and it will represent something of our time.
Nice way of explaining that, yeah. Violetta, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with Leo pretty much on everything he said, especially the scarcity aspect and the rarity aspect of things. And, you know, for music, it's completely the opposite. In the traditional world, scarcity is a bad thing for music. You want to have, you know, millions of fans and sell millions of records, and that I feel like has taken away a lot of the value of like taking a song, for example, or a piece of music as a one-of-one unique piece of art. And I feel like inscribing music on Bitcoin brings that scarcity and rarity value to music. Obviously, you know, it's hard to inscribe music because of file size limitations. You have to be very smart and creative, right, in the way that you write your songs, the way you record them. But personally, the biggest hurdle that I found coming from the traditional industry into the blockchain industry is exactly that. People are not used to having scarcity attached to music, and they're not used to collecting music. People collect vinyl, but it's different, right? Vinyl has kind of, it's coming back a little bit right now, but it's not really something that everyone does, and it hasn't been, you know, that valuable like NFTs or Ordinals are, in my opinion, for music. So yeah, I'm trying to like work on changing people's mentality around collecting music like it is a sculpture or a painting or a piece of photography. So that's been the biggest challenge so far.
And Gordon?
Yeah, I actually really resonate with what you just said in regards to scarcity, because when you think about it, physical art similarly has a very different scarcity approach, because if you have a physical painting or a sculpture, only you can experience that painting on your wall. Like nobody else can really have a full experience of that painting. But with digital media, it's completely opposite. Like the experience can actually scale because it's in a totally different ecosystem, a totally different environment. And what then becomes the main point is how do you encapsulate and have a transparent ownership of that piece. So it's not about limiting who sees it, or like who hears it in this case. It's more about how can we create a transparent, decentralized system that showcases the ownership of it. So, you know, that's why, like, for example, a lot of artists that come to me and tell me, like, oh, are you an NFT artist? I tell them, fuck no, like, there's no such thing as an NFT artist, you know? It's like if you're a writer, you don't say I'm a PDF writer, you know? It's you're just a writer. So it's about the content that you put inside of this medium. So I think a lot of people from the traditional world are still slowly grasping that idea that, you know, ordinals or, you know, any type of other ways of encapsulating art or like Runescriptions or whatever is just a format where you put your artwork in. But it's actually not defined by it. Like it's actually far bigger actually what you put in, what's the concept behind it, what's the artwork, you know, so it's a lot of other things that are very important around it. So I think just that distinction between, as you said, scarcity of access and consumption in the very digital native world, I think that there's a bit of a disbalance there still, but we're slowly getting better and better every year.
There's still a big stigma as it relates to digital art and the reasons that we do this, right? I was just this morning, I got in an Uber, and the Uber driver asked me where I was going, and I explained, you know, I'm in cryptocurrency and do a little bit of Bitcoin, and he turned around, he said, oh, I've been hearing a lot of people talk about it. So it's all about speculation, right? It's just so that you don't have to pay any taxes wherever it is that you go, and that's the whole reason, right? And I thought, oh my gosh, I never tell an Uber driver where it is that I'm actually going. But I figured it's Portugal, it's Lisbon, let me give it a shot. and I'm never doing that again. So my point is there's a lot of stigma as it relates to, you know, people making a career out of this and actually thinking about it in a very long term. There's even stigma within our communities here, right? When Ordinals started, I remember as a space host, I remember having so many people that were strong believers in Bitcoin and were absolutely opposed to any kind of art or any kind of images being put on it because in their opinion, it decreased the value of it. So I really want to ask you and pick your brains on what are your thoughts on not only knocking down those stigmas outside, but knocking them inside of our own community. Leah, we can start with you.
Wow, it's a very large topic as well, but a very meaningful one. I will take the example of the runestone because I have been working on it as the designer artist. Big up to all the team, actually, Leonidas, and all the people who have been working on this large size concept because I'm just the designer of the stone, the shape. But the main idea is that you can do something scarce and inscribe as a 1-1, but you can also decide to open the child inscription to the mass. And I like this idea of being in both aspects. You can have a file which is scarce and heavy by itself, but also open the visibility to the maximum. I don't know if I take the good access to your question, but I will try to go back to it. The main idea is that if you are an artist, you must do something for emotion and beauty. I know it's kind of difficult to express that, especially in a speculative market. The physical art market has been very speculative for years, and I think that many people buy art also for a resource of value. But the fact that you can build an open visibility on your art online, and at the same time, you can own it if you decide to buy it, but you can also see it if you don't decide to buy it. I like this concept of art that will not be removed from the viewer, removed from the beauty of it, like expressing something for the others. It's very different than doing something aesthetic. When you do something aesthetic, you want the object to be useful, you want the chair to be aesthetic, you want something to be aesthetic, but when you do art, you want something to be beautiful. And the difference seems a detail, but it's a lot, because something beautiful, it won't be aesthetic, it won't be easy to catch, but it's something that will be beyond value, beyond something that is just a market. It's also a pure move, a pure something that you do, and that's what I like with the runestone concept. It was just a move as an artist to do that, inscribe it with Leonidas and so on, and give it and see where it goes. And this is the value of something artistic as well. It must not be all the time made for utility or made for value. It must be made with honesty and beauty.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Violetta, I wanna dive into the music aspect with you just a little bit more. And that question that I posed to Leo is open on the table if you want to explore that too. But we have a tremendous opportunity to talk to you today. Violetta, you've been breaking all kinds of barriers in the space. In the space, and I think that you're an inspiration for a lot of artists and a lot of musicians in the space that are wondering, all right, how do I even get this started? How do I make myself be discovered, you know? I think that one of the resounding complaints, if you will, or shared frustrations in artists is being able to find a way to be seen, right? How do I market myself? I come from a traditional world in which maybe I already have a manager, maybe I already have something else that I can lean on. But in Web3, none of that exists. Web3 is completely decentralized, and the idea is that you take out the middleman and that you're able to do it yourself. But musicians in Web3 are not, it's not what we immediately think of when we think about, you know, digital art or when we think about any other format. And you almost have to remind folks, music is part of it. So I'm curious, what are maybe top 3 things that you would recommend to someone who maybe is starting or is wondering, can I make a career out of this? Is this a space in which, you know, I can find a home in?
Very good question. A lot of people ask me as well, and my answer kind of changes all the time because I'm still learning, obviously. Top 3 things. I mean, number 1, I would say just stop listening to people telling you who you should be. You know, that's, I would say, the number 1 answer. When I first got into Web3 and really started diving in, the best advice I got was from a person that helped me get started. And I actually asked him, so, you know, I'm used to the traditional industry telling me you have to write like a radio song, right? A radio-friendly song, or a Spotify-friendly song, or a TV-friendly song. What's the NFT song like? That was my automatic question. And he was like, whatever you would do on your own, alone, all day, when you're chilling at home, and you'll never get tired of, do that, right? And that was like the best advice ever, because that allowed me to do something I really thought was meaningful to me and continue doing it. So advice number 2, grind as hard as you possibly can. Like, no one is here for you. No one cares about you. No one actually cares about music and its value. No one is acquainted with the idea of speculating on music except for the industry, right? So make yourself more valuable than you have, you know, until that moment, because you're gonna have to get out of your comfort zone. So work really, really hard. In order to do that, you need to love it. Love it more than before. And number 3, I mean, be ready to change your mind about anything all the time, and be ready to learn and dive into really technical things that a normal musician would never even have to care about, like runes. Like what? You know, like why would I? You know what I mean? Like someone like me, I was just playing shows, you know, in bars and playing festivals and trying to get on Spotify playlists. Why do I need to care about the tickers or like recursion? Like what, you know? But now I do, so. Yeah, but I wouldn't say it is necessarily for everyone. What I'm trying to create is an opportunity for musicians to have an alternative route, because right now we don't have it. It's a monopoly, basically. So it's important for us to have an alternative route and have a different canvas to put our music on and a different audience. Yeah, so I don't know if that answers that.
Yeah, no, totally answered. I think that was great. Thank you for that. And Gordon, I'm going to ask you specifically about runes. Why runes?
Why runes? I guess maybe just to touch upon your previous questions about kind of the stigma, even internally in the space, you know, because I feel like I was lucky enough to be present in this whole huge journey. You know, I kind of started with centralized digital currencies before Bitcoin, and then slowly I kind of started to, you know, in the early days learn about Bitcoin, and, you know, in 2012 I completely immersed myself. So I kind of saw this sentiment in the community where it kind of, at one point, it was like if you do anything innovative, there was like a mob with pitchforks going after you, you know, to kind of completely shifting now, pretty much thanks to Ordinals and KC and Ordinal theory. We kind of saw this huge shift in sentiment, and a lot of other people slowly figuring out like, oh, it's okay to experiment, it's okay to build something unusual, it's okay to use some of these things in a novel, different way, you know, which again kind of comes back to the concept of Runescriptions, because, you know, that was also kind of a bit of a creative use of the protocol that maybe it wasn't originally intended or had in mind, you know, primarily. So I think in that sense the stigma of innovation and these things was way greater, maybe like, you know, a few years ago, but now it's actually in a really, really amazing spot. And we can even see it by, you know, like how many people are in this room. You know, like for example, just a few months ago, we were at NFT Paris, and there was like only one little side event, you know, and there was maybe like 3 artists. Shout out to my friend Harto, who was there. And yeah, and like, look at us now. We now have actually like literally a conference inside of a conference dedicated to Ordinals. Like that's pretty cool. And we'll see, you know, who knows, maybe next, like in a year from now, you know, there's a huge conference only dedicated to art and Bitcoin. So we actually see like that sentiment and the energy really rising and bubbling up, and, you know, like there's a lot of creatives actually realizing it's okay to think outside the box and use Bitcoin as a medium. It's okay to maybe like do something that's a bit weird here, and I think that's really, really beneficial. So yeah, that's kind of what I think even gave rise to Runescriptions as a format. Basically, you know, a couple of us from the community and, you know, some people from Art is the Ticker community, we were like testing how can we use runes for artworks. And then we realized that instead of putting a logo for a rune, you can essentially, instead of a symbol, have an image. And then we realized, okay, wow, if we have an image, and then we can create some rune tokens underneath it, and then we send this image to Satoshi, so it's not anymore tradable or collectible, then the only collectible components become these tokens that are forever tied to this image. And I think we are literally on the brink of a new format for fractionalizations or editions, art editions on Bitcoin now. So that's something that I'm really excited about, and I'm looking forward to kind of, push forward and experiment more with.
Amazing. I think it's really cool that you got, the ticker, art is the ticker, right? Was that difficult?
It was very difficult. First off, I wasn't sleeping for 24 hours, literally just like monitoring the mempool and looking how quickly these runes were being inscribed. And it was like, I was like a madman. There was just like 24 hours without sleeping. Finally, when I thought it would be a good way, a good time, By the way, I had only one shot. So it was like insane. So anyway, I optimized my fees and all of this, and I tried to time it, ideally, and then I just submitted my transaction. I was just then waiting, and honestly, at this point, I was ready to go to sleep. I was dead. I was 24 hours monitoring how quickly they were being etched and stuff. Anyway, I go have a quick bite. I come back to my computer, I refresh my screen, and I just see people on Twitter saying, oh, Rune 10,000 has been etched. And I'm thinking oh, fuck, I mean, the chances for me getting it were really, really slim, even though I was you cannot really predict these things. So anyway, I refresh and I see oh my God, it's actually Rune 10,000. It's 10000. And so immediately I remember damn, I actually made it free to mint. So I go to the mint page and I just see 20 transactions, 100 transactions, 200 transactions, 400 transactions, and just it started going crazy. And literally at one point, it completely minted out in one evening. So it was really beautiful because I wanted to kind of mark this moment, conceptually, this milestone of a 10K. And kind of I have an artwork that really deals with this concept of network effects, which I think is very native to creating art on Bitcoin and blockchain, So it was really beautiful how kind of very organically a community was born, and a lot of people who were actually interested in this intersection of art and Bitcoin were kind of drawn to art as the ticker. And yeah, I'm having really beautiful conversations with this community now, and we're actually working on an upcoming project that we're actually going to do a collaborative collections with 10 other artists. But yeah, more information will be soon.
Very
regarding
cool.
that. Yeah.
So my next question was going to be, what do you have going on the next year, and how can we continue to support you? And you were about to talk a little bit more about Alpha. You want to continue on that? And
so I guess I'm just really, really excited to just, with this group of artists, to really think how can we kind of pioneer this new format of art editions and kind of fractionalization of art on Bitcoin through the Runes protocol. So that's something that we're all kind of together developing, and we want to kind of start as an example by kind of doing a huge collection, and there's going to be 10 artists, and the concept behind all of the artworks will be time, because Satoshi actually called blockchain time chain, believe it or not. Because when you think about it, time is literally at the essence of Bitcoin. Without time, there's no order, no transaction history, which means no blocks, which means no blockchain. So when you get it back to the first principle, time, and this kind of concept of decentralized time stamping is at its core of any blockchain. That's why I really love when you said the concept of time you're interested in. So that's something we can talk later. But yeah, that's basically what all of us as these artists, we'll kind of explore through our own style and our own work. So yeah, and we'll do a Runescription format for this new collection.
Very nice. Can't wait to see more about that then.
Yeah, soon there'll be more information. It's a bit early, but yeah, probably in the next 2 weeks.
Very
we'll
cool.
share more.
Violetta, what about you?
Yeah, so I have been inscribing a few songs over the past year. I definitely want to continue exploring, trying to find better ways to inscribe music, because like I said, it's still a little bit early for that. There aren't a lot of musicians experimenting with it, so it's kind of a slow and uphill road, but so there's still a lot of exploring I need to do with that. But I have a tour actually coming up, which is something I should probably plug. I'm planning kind of a decentralized tour, so I'm leveraging my community based on where they are They're going to help me map out a tour across the United States, and I'm going to perform in their homes, and they're going to invite their friends and their friends of their friends, and we're going to onboard every single person that will show up that night. I'm not kidding. I'll come home.
Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. 'Cause
Applause.
honestly,
for real.
I think music is one of the things that, and it's going to be a hot take, but it's one of the things that will help onboard the most amounts of people to Web3, because it is something that's still for the masses, a very easy, no pressure kind of onboarding thing. So I'm hoping to onboard about 600 or 700 people in about 3 weeks through music. So fingers crossed.
Wow, I love that. Very cool. And Leo, how about you?
As you might know, I like heavy things, so I will keep on pushing on this large size inscription. Right now, I do have my 1-1 large size inscription, which is one of the top 10 biggest inscription made on Bitcoin, with at Sotheby's auctioned right now at Sotheby's New York for the next 2 days. So I'm very happy to see that the major art institutions start to have this kind of real interest into scarcity art, because they understand it's a crazy amount of effort, of money, of difficulty. And it's like making a large-size marble sculpture. It's something that is out of the box, and now the physical art markets start to understand the scarcity and the value of the digital art market. So I will keep on pushing this way because I definitely like that. And at the same time, I am opening a larger collection on Bitcoin based on stone, as always, because I like stones. I did the block, which is an equivalent of marble weight. You can accumulate block, and then you can burn the block to get a physical marble sculptures. I'm very interested in this real-world asset, the fact that you can make a dialogue in between a digital asset that will have a value by itself, and you can reduce the supply of this, like it's an asset that you can destroy and get a physical piece by itself. I like this dialogue in between the physical and the digital, because the both market will help themselves to have a strong long-term value. So yeah, I do have some of my sculptures downstairs. Feel free to stop by. We can discuss a little bit. And if you want to be part of these next things that I will be launching in September, you have a QR code, you scan, and you will be the first to know. Thank you very much to all of you.
Very cool. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining us
you.
today. Thank you, everybody,
you.
for being here.